You were listening to the Unhappy Hour Sports Radio Show on the newamericanmedia.com.
Hey everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Happy Friday. Seriously. Thank you for joining us. We have just got a message from, let's see who this is. There are many different ways you guys can contact us. And girls. Guys and girls. People. Ron Paul Radio has went ahead and signed up to join us on Skype. You guys can do that as well by going to TNAM Radio. Write it down. It's the New American Media, like those are the letters. So TNAM Radio. Because the news always matters. TNAM. And then that's where we're at. That's where we are located, and you guys can call in on that line. You know what? How about this? We're going to start the show completely different. Normally, right now, I'd be talking about Tiger Woods and the Masters. Hey, how's that going? Talk about the Indians and their epic, 16-inning marathon loss to open their season at home in front of, I think, a sold-out crowd, and then it dwindled at the end, obviously. Or I'll talk about Isaiah Thomas getting fired. Do a couple of things like that. But I'm going to go different. We have our Skype line, and it's open. We know that we have people listening in different locations. This person's in Ohio, though. Take a look. We got Ireland. We got Ohio. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. If you want to call us now, right now, jump into the show. You can do that at TNAM Radio. Just click call. We know you're listening. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go in that direction. You guys want to join us? The ball is in your court. We will gladly do so. Otherwise, we're going to get right into it. Because it's a very strange week. As always. You know, whether it's sports for the Unhappy Hour program, or whether it's the Agree to Disagree show. Doesn't matter if we're talking politics or spirituality or male soap operas or sports, whatever you guys want to refer to it as. There's a lot going on always. You know, and we come from the perspective Cleveland fans. And if you don't know what being a Cleveland fan is, let me explain what that means. Think of your favorite sporting team. Even if, all right, maybe you're not big into sports, but you know people that are into sports. Imagine their favorite sporting team. And then think of the other teams in that city. So if you're in a major city in the United States, you got like an NFL football team. And then you have your favorite baseball team and your favorite basketball team, maybe a hockey team. Or soccer. Globally, they love soccer. I don't. I like playing it. Don't really like watching it. But just imagine you never win a championship ever. I mean, that's what it's been like since 1964. The city of Cleveland has not celebrated a championship with their baseball team, their football team, their basketball team. They had to go like 2 hours south to Columbus to claim that one when the Buckeyes brought it home. And I'll tell you what, I went to school and have a psychology degree, and I am far from being an expert. I'm not coming to you today as Dr. Drew Pinsky. He's a brilliant dude, by the way. Adam Carolla, very good insight as well from Loveline, but not so much from that perspective. But I really think it does something to the psyche of a region. It does something to sports fans. You know, 1964, 1974, 84, 94, 04, almost 14. We're talking almost 50 years. You know, that's what, 3 generations? 3 generations of people who were taught that you shouldn't get too excited about things, that you shouldn't reach for your dreams because you always just lose it at the end. I mean, Cleveland teams are notorious for choking. You know, and then, of course, LeBron James. I don't even care how big a fan you are. You know who the dude is. 2-time MVP. You know, best record in the league 2 years in a row. It's not all him. There was a very, very, very good team put around him. It just wasn't the superstar trifecta like Miami or in Boston with the Celtics. But even when we got that close, we couldn't bring home a championship. Two choke jobs in the playoffs. And that's the way they rolled. Speaking of roll, let's do this. What's going on here? No, call in now. I want you to call in now. We just got a message. HX1. This is Ron Paul Radio. Here, we're going to take bets. Send us a direct message on Twitter. Does he want to talk sports or politics? This is Brian, and you are on the newamericanmedia.com. How are you today?
I'm well, Brian. Hi, nice to meet you.
Likewise, nice to meet you. Why don't we start from scratch, because you and I really don't know each other, and we found you online. So go ahead and introduce who you are, where you're calling from, and why you're listening today.
Right on. Well, we actually just met in the last, I don't know, half an hour on Twitter. I see that you were a follower over there, and you're into media. Anything called New American Media, I'm going to be interested in it because we need new media in this country. The old media is just, completely bankrupt at this point. So New American Media is definitely what we need. So I'm glad to see people like you out there doing that. My name is HX, otherwise known as Hank Xavier, if you know me. And if you don't know me, you can call me that as well. I don't really care. That's just what I say on the radio because it sounds good. And I'm the station manager. I'm the station manager at ronpaulradio.com.
Excellent. And where are you calling? Where are we speaking to you from today? What great state are you in? It said Ohio. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm down in the Gem City at Dayton City, Ohio.
Nice. I married a girl from Xenia. So
really,
yeah, I went to school at Bowling Green. We grew up outside of Cleveland. That's why this is a Cleveland sports show. And we always veer away from sports because, sometimes you want to get distracted and sometimes you want to buckle in and get some work done. And it just seems like, Republican, Democrat, I'm tired of that game. I'm really not interested in right versus left in party at all costs. I was not happy with 8 years that we had under a Republican, and I'm not happy 3 years in with a Democrat, and I just think they're part of the same one big party ruling oligarchy system that keeps us arguing over fringe personal issues while the entire country is looted. That's what I do on this radio show over here. Why would you say you do what you do over there?
Well, because for all the reasons that you just named, obviously, I mean, everything that you just said is pretty much right on target. And of course, that's typical in the new media. The new media is the only ones who are telling the truth about those things. But I really think that, Ron Paul is a different kind of Republican. He's not the same kind of Republican that we're used to. And I think that one of the reasons that people like you and maybe other people out there who aren't necessarily into politics become so, disenfranchised from the political process in this country is because they like you, they do sense that both the left and the right really have become the same sort of ideology, really. Whether you're talking about neoconservatism or neoliberalism, they both seem to lead to war. They both seem to lead to great big giant overwhelming governments that kick your door down at 4 a.m, shoot your dogs, and then blame you for it. So I think a lot of people out there they share the same sentiment, and they realize that both the left and the right are really the same party, and we don't want that. We're Americans, right?
Yeah, and I was just thinking about how the founders of this country really were the libertarians of it all. I mean, Thomas Jefferson's like, regarding religion, if another man believes in one God or 20 gods, if it neither breaks my leg nor picks my pocket, what do I care? Right. And now we're in a day where I got to get into your birth control issues, and we got to argue over abortion all day long. I get that there are some complicated personal issues, but for a minute while our country burns, can we maybe just put that stuff on the side and say, don't try to convince me you're right. I won't try to convince you you're right on that. But can we please focus on the fiscal policy that's bankrupting us? Is war part of the reason, or the military-industrial complex? Is it our fault for not being involved locally or on a larger scale? And can we maybe focus on the fact that the ship is sinking instead of rearranging the deck chairs while it sinks? And that's how I feel.
Yeah, and you're just right over the target. It goes to show you exactly what is behind the interest of the mainstream media in terms of military-industrial complex. When a candidate like Ron Paul can draw over 10,000 people at UCLA just this week, and nobody in the media covered it at all.
Well, tell us a little bit more about it. What can you tell us about that event? How many, like the specifics? Get into it. Now is your chance to be the reporter, because this is going to live on YouTube, and people are going to pass this around hundreds and thousands of times. Anytime you attach Ron Paul and something current to it, it's just it's a good opportunity for people who have been just fed up. You know when you're being lied to. We know when we're being placated. And we know when the fix is in. And we felt that for more than a decade. Go back to NAFTA. Let's go back to going off the gold standard. Let's go back to the IRS and Woodrow Wilson. Let's go back, to the Alien Act and the Sedition Act with John Adams, our second president. They were already locking up journalists.
Right.
This isn't new. So it's like look, I could go on. I want to get your answer to the previous question if I still could.
Well, what's going on is that starting, I think, in Idaho or Utah or one of those two, Dr. Paul started to draw enormous crowds to these events. It started out at 5,000 in Michigan, and everybody was like, wow, that's impressive, because there's no other candidate in the Republican cycle right now that's drawing anywhere close. Look, Mitt Romney booked a giant Superdome. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but he booked an entire Superdome and then set up chairs down on the green.
I can tell you what it was. I can tell you that was up in Detroit. That was at their new football stadium. I think Ford Field. Yeah. And
certainly Detroit's not going to show up for Romney because they're the ones who need the jobs the most, and he ain't going to give them to you.
Now let me say this, because I am certainly not a guy that supports Mitt Romney. Let me put on my other hat for just a second, because I have never said I supported the guy, and I don't. Here's my question. If there's ever been a time where you need a guy to come in and go, okay, who's the boss here? Because you guys have screwed everything up I can imagine. Now, like Gordon Ramsay walking into some restaurant somewhere and the kitchen's a disaster. And you got to dress down the chef. You got to fire a few people. You got to put people to work and figure it out. And that part of that involves laying off the dead weight and getting lean and mean and get a new game plan together. Just as devil's advocate, wouldn't Romney ideally be the guy to do that, since what he did at the Olympics? Or is it just that we can't trust him as being non-robotic and already purchased by Goldman Sachs? Help me out.
What did he do at the Olympics? He went $8 million in debt at the Olympics or something like that? What did he do there? He didn't really do anything there. It's one thing to say, that, my state, my region, my geographical locale, we decided to spend money on ourselves so that we could raise our profile and bring the Olympics, to our area. That's one thing. Okay, say that. That's fine. You raised your profile. That's great. But what did you do? You didn't create any jobs. What you did was you created debt. So it really confuses me when he trots that sort of thing out there. And the problem is that the public at large, they just see a word like the Olympics, and really all they know about that is that it's a big event. And if somebody could run a big giant event, like the Olympics, well then surely that must illustrate that they can run a big country like the United States, right? Well, that's an understandable conclusion, but if you just take a brief look behind that conclusion, what you will see mountains of debt, and you'll see tremendous government spending, and you will see crony capitalism, and you will see all these things that Americans at their very core understand are not appropriate for our country. We weren't founded for that. We don't have a tradition of that, and we really don't want a future of that once we get a clear picture of that is what is going on, which is what the mainstream media does not provide to us at this time.
So let's focus on the candidate that you care about. You said that, okay, so we got kind of hung up on the Romney thing, and we got confused over there, bouncing over to Romney and the Olympics. Let's get back to Ron Paul. So Romney was getting spaces at places like Ford Field, and they gotta just completely bring it in so that the 600 people can make it look like a respectable crowd in a giant cavern. So let's go to Ron Paul. You mentioned at UCLA today. Focus on that for a second. Paint me the picture of what you would see out here in California, of all states, regarding this most recent Ron Paul visit.
Well, the picture that I would like to paint for the public is one of a tremendously steep curve on one of those little cool scale table things, that we learned about in school. The curve is extraordinarily steep for people who are interested and committed to the Ron Paul campaign, and it is only by the complicity of the mainstream media, which has provably committed itself to a blackout of the Ron Paul campaign and or a smear campaign against them, because every single one of them are owned by like 10 parent corporations, something like that, and they all have deep ties to the military industrial complex, which is raking in trillions of dollars off of blood money in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Yemen, the entirety of the Middle East, you name it. We've probably got people there doing things that we shouldn't be doing, so the picture is one of a rising curve. In Michigan, it was like 5,000 people. And then they went to Utah, and it was like 5,200 people. And then they went to somewhere else, and it was like 6,200 people. And now they're in California. And in California, they're drawing 8,000 people, 10,000 people, 11,000 people. They're selling out giant venues to where there's standing room only. And you have people outside who are climbing into the trees to hear this man speak. But the mainstream media has nothing to say about it.
He must be the Messiah. He must be the Messiah. Then he must be incredibly charismatic, Ivy League educated, and the change we've been hoping for. Right?
He's a country doctor. He's an OBGYN. He delivers babies. But the difference is that he is the one. He's got a 30-year record, first of all, and that's a hard thing to fake in politics. You can stand up on a stage during a national debate and tell whatever you lie that you want to. I think Bachman got caught in a total of like 22 lies in just one debate. So, and she even quoted the people who were calling her a liar. It was like PolitiFact or something like that. It was just it's like watching a sitcom at certain points, that you can't believe these people are, feeding the American public this stuff. And, we are a people who deserve more than that. We decided as a people that we were going to get behind our leadership after 9/11 because we thought that we understood that we'd been attacked and we were going to go get the guys that attacked us. And instead, what they turned it into is an invasion, occupation, oppression money machine. And they go into these places, and it justifies and rationalizes the tremendous draw of tax dollars from the American people and the tremendous draw of debt from China, of all places, to dump into these places. And along the way, the people in charge get to take their cut. So, man, I just think that we deserve more. And Dr. Paul is showing now more than ever that he can draw tremendous support. And it is only by the complicity of the media that he is not in first place everywhere he goes right now.
We are talking live with Hank Xavier of Ron Paul Radio. Hank, take a second and tell people where they can find more about you on Twitter, on your radio show, on your YouTube. Go ahead, talk to everybody.
Right on. You can go to facebook.com/Ron Paul Radio, of course. And you can also go to ronpaulradio.com. And we are a Ron Paul centric sort of news network, wherein we talk about basically anything and everything that is related to the Peace and Prosperity platform. And what that means is freedom. You get to keep your own money. You get to keep the money that is worth something, which is, the opposite of what's going on right now.
Now, focus on that for just a second. Explain what that means. You're obviously talking about silver and gold, not fiat paper money by the Federal Reserve. Explain what that means one more time.
Well, I mean, the people out there are really going to understand what it means when they go to the grocery store. Go to the grocery store and they have to pay $10 for a jar of peanut butter. They're going to understand what it means. And that's an unfortunate and very harsh reality, but it's coming. And it's already, I just read reports today about over the last 3 months, food prices have gone up, and they will continue to go up because there is a reality of a thing called inflation. And the inflation comes from an organization which is not a federal institution called the Federal Reserve. Now, that sounds really confusing, right? How can something be called the Federal Reserve and not be a part of the government? Well, they're not. The Congress is supposed to have oversight over them, but it's actually a private corporation that is owned by member banks that we're not allowed to know about. They don't release their membership rolls. So this institution has taken over the manufacturing process of our money, our dollar. And over the past 10 years, I mean, inflation it's just continued to go up. Since 1913, your dollar on the gold standard is now worth about 5 cents on that standard. So imagine what your dollar would be worth if it was, in that context, if it was worth what it was actually supposed to be worth. You'd be able to buy a gallon of gas for $1 again. Dr. Paul likes to say that you would be able to buy a gallon of gas for a dime, a silver dime, because the silver is worth about $4 right now. So,
and we have certainly went ahead and considered some of that ourselves. What would you say to somebody that's starting to wake up to this inflation thing? And we don't sell gold line here. We don't sell silver coins, although those are going to be the first people we target once we do start getting advertising, obviously. But what would you say to someone who's like, well, I need my dollars, or I have a little bit saved up, but I'd just rather keep it where it's at. Why would that person be better off doing something different with investing their money? Bring it home to them. They
may not actually be better off doing that, because we've been able to uncover and expose intervention in the markets for gold and silver. Actually, gold is being held down by the complicity of several federal governments around the world, including the United States, Canada, and Britain, and France. And a lot of the same nations that are on the UN Security Council, by the way, and prefer central banks. And by the way, Libya was about to create their own central bank and issue gold, by the way, and they just got bombed to crap and back, by the way.
By the way, let me jump in there, because we have a guest coming up in the next hour who's going to talk about the Kennedy murder. And do you know any connection with what Kennedy was doing regarding printing and coining currency right around the time that he was assassinated, and draw any comparisons to what happened with Gaddafi, for example, by the way?
Yeah, he was definitely about to make some changes with the Federal Reserve System right around the time that he was assassinated. Now, you can draw your own conclusions. I've talked to one of the preeminent experts in the field on the Kennedy assassination. His name is Jim Fetzer, and you can Google him. And he pretty much lays out the entire case from beginning to end and from several different angles. So he's been doing it for basically since it happened. So you could draw your own conclusions. But I would say this, that is that the Western plutocracy prefers central banking to be a fiat paradigm. And what that means is it's a paper system that they can then manipulate by using various tools like interest rates, at a centralized location like central banks, in order to either raise the value of your currency or drop the value of your currency through the floor. And by doing that, they can basically control massive populations in the place where it most counts, which is your wallet.
Yeah, it's real complicated. I remember as a younger man, I knew during the Clinton administration and around that time, maybe into Bush, it was like, oh yeah, Alan Greenspan, he's great. That was the prevailing opinion at the time. Oh, Alan Greenspan, what a great Fed guy. Oh, he's doing so good for the American government. And then I don't even know when I woke up, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and said, wait a minute, the Federal Reserve is like Federal Express. They're a private company that delivers the mail. There's nothing U.S. Postal Service about it. That's just a private company. And knowing that we have to borrow our own money at interest, come on, man. That's not what was intended in this country, and everybody knows it.
Well, if you take a look at, and my memory fails me, but it was a report that was done in the third year of the first Reagan administration. And what they discovered, they did a very comprehensive audit of the income tax system, and they took a really deep look. Oh, and by the way, shortly after that, there was an assassination attempt made on Reagan. If anybody recalls that, I don't know how long your listener or how old your listener base is, but that was a long time ago. Shortly after he commissioned this report is when that occurred. Draw your own conclusion. But what this study was able to discover is that almost all of our federal income taxes don't go to the government. They don't go to provide services. What they do is they go to pay the interest on the national debt, and that was in 1983.
So let's jump in right there. Let's bring this back to the level of the 99% here. We went out to Occupy Los Angeles. We met Ron Paul supporters out there. We met people with signs that said "End the Fed." So I know Fox was telling me, "Oh, it's just dirty hippies and idiots. They don't even know what they're out there for, and they're raping people." Now, there are some idiots, there are some hippies, there are some dirty people, and there were some rapes. Yes, I acknowledge that. But I also met Ron Paul people that were really interested in the Federal Reserve. A guy, Tyler Whitmore, he's on our YouTube page at youtube.com/The New American Media. He explains why he came out to Occupy LA. He said, the Federal Reserve is destroying this country. He said, and I saw this on Facebook, and I would feel real bad if I didn't get out here to be a part of it. So, obviously the concern is that George Soros and some other the unions are going to steer Occupy LA in much the way that the Tea Party became co-opted by the Republican movement. But there's starting to become this opinion that's the illusion, that's the scam, that's the trick to make you watch the right hand while the left one picks your pocket again. So I don't know if you want to comment on any or all of that, but I'll leave it up to you there.
Well, I can tell you that our official policy at ronpaulradio.com is that we do support the Occupy movement. We support the right and the will of the people to peaceably assemble and to air their grievances all day long as you would like. And you could do it on public property. I'm not going to pay your bills. Some of the things that I did see and with some of the Occupy movements. And of course, one has to understand that the Occupy movement is not one cohesive entity. It's comprised of numerous, many groups that are scattered around the country.
It's the disaffected youth. So you will get some people that are not quite lining up with your ideals, and it's hard to say this whole movement is embodied by this one idiot doing something stupid.
Oh yeah. And but that's what the bringing it back to your your abortion comment early on here, that's what the mainstream media does is they know that they are completely inept at writing the history of this country as it is. They don't have the capability. It's much easier to just spin about a bunch of rhetoric, make up things that you want, and then put it on the air and people pay for it. But what they like to do is they like to wrap up a enormous, complex idea into one tiny little sound bite that makes you either for or against it without understanding what it actually is. And they do that. They did it with Tea Party. They did it with Occupy. They do it with abortion, by the way. And, I find the abortion issue to be odd to begin with politically because the Republicans, who are all supposedly pro-life, they had complete control of the federal government for 8 years and didn't do anything about abortion. So to me, the whole argument is kind of disingenuous coming from them from the beginning because all they do is use it as a hot button to stir up their base and get them out to vote. So they wrap up all these big ideas into these tiny little for or against sound bites and then, issue us on our way like, proper little wind up soldiers,
We're talking with Hank Xavier of Ron Paul Radio. Hank, tell us about your radio shows and your content over there. How many people you have saying what you're saying? When are the hours? What is the game plan there? Just kind of talk for a minute about your operations and how things move. So if someone wants to bounce from our show over to yours at some point, how do they do that, and what are they going to get over there?
Well, it's actually a full featured online radio station. We provide phones and we provide an interface for people to bring guests on and all that stuff over there. And we broadcast live content basically from about 10 a.m. Eastern, which would be what is that 7 a.m. Pacific.
7. Yep.
Yeah. So we go from 10 a.m. Eastern all the way up till midnight Eastern. And so that's a good solid 12 hours during the weekdays. And then we do have some live programming on the weekend. But we are looking for new hosts. You don't have to have a lick of experience. If you're interested in Ron Paul, if you feel like that you have something to say for liberty and you would like to speak that, then we do have room for people to do their own programs, and we encourage them to do that. So it's pretty cool, man. And, yeah.
What is your definition of liberty? Some people say, oh, well, that's just Ayn Rand saying poor people should die in a gutter, like that Alan Grayson guy saying, Republicans' plan for health care is that you die faster. Great bumper sticker, guy. Great bumper sticker. But maybe we should read 2,700 pages before we just pass this because it's an emergency again.
Yeah.
You know,
but according to Pelosi, you can't read it until you pass it. So.
Oh, I can't wait until we pass this so that we can find out what's in it. By the way, I don't know. We're bringing on a guest. I do want to tell you this. We're going to be talking with somebody in a little bit who's a Ron Paul Republican running against Henry Waxman. Did you get a chance to hear about that?
No, not yet. Tell me.
Okay. Well, basically, we have a bunch of friends over at a place called Lions of Liberty. They're from Penn State, Nittany Lions, so they're the lionsofliberty.com and lionsofliberty.blogspot.com. And
nice.
they are writing some really good liberty-driven articles. You need to go check them out. They're doing great stuff, but they lined up a guest today, Christopher David. He's speaking tomorrow at a debate in Santa Monica. Or when is that? That would be – actually, that was yesterday. But anyway, he defines himself as a Ron Paul Republican and liberty candidate. So, you know, to the listeners that are kind of warming up to this idea, what is liberty? Because it's so often misused and so many people have a not quite the right idea of what that means on a daily life.
Liberty is very simply the concept of self-ownership. And as long as you don't hurt anyone else, you can do with your life as you please, period.
Why would somebody have a problem with this? Can you please help me understand why? Who in the world would have a problem with that concept?
Well, again, I believe that it is directly due to the complicity of the mainstream media. And in order to really understand what's happened to us as a society, we have to take a moment to research and to understand what propaganda is and look at a little bit of history and understand that propaganda has been used by every evil system and evil man going all the way back to early Chinese dynasties that would print flyers and posters, propaganda posters back then. And we have really been psychologically victimized as a society by the media and, to a large degree by the public school system. But that's a different topic altogether. And we don't understand who we are anymore. We don't understand that you participate in the action of freedom pretty much every single day, all day long. And that is the general methodology that occurs for the 99%. The 99% does these things. They live their lives without hurting anybody else. They do what they want without hurting anybody else. They buy a house and they use their own property the way that they want to without hurting anybody else. And it's only this 1%, which is why we support the 99, the Occupy movement, is because we have so much in common. We don't like the 1% either. And we don't like the 1% because the 1% represents these fascist entities, these fascist public, private, pseudo corporate, weird conglomerates like the, memory fails me.
Speaking of George Soros.
Right.
Right. It gets complicated because you want to support a people's movement in theory. You want to encourage the peaceful petition of redress of grievances from your government. But then you look at Oakland and you see buildings burning. And then you see the new Black Panthers calling for violence. And then you see anarchists out there. And you see some really socialist, Marxist, communist that have a bent on not staying peaceful. And that's what we heard for 3 years with the Tea Party. Oh, they're violent, their rhetoric. Nothing. I mean, this was a very well-behaved group of people considering how angry all of this country is. But that was the paradigm you found on the radio all the time and on television. Oh, those angry, violent people in the Tea Party. And I've always thought that Ron Paul was the one person that most closely embodied what the concept of Tea Party was. It's not social conservatism. It's about libertarianism, where you can live your life and not have the scam and the wool pulled over your eyes, so you're constantly an indentured servant. You know, I don't know why all these social issues have anything to do with anything even related to the Tea Party.
I mean, look, the truth is that, you know, I'm an openly gay person. I came out of the closet in 1992 when people were still getting beat up in locker rooms, you know, by, you know, 10, 15 jocks at a time, you know, because of some misunderstood glance, you know. And so I come from that era, and it's like I lost my point. What was the question?
We're talking about Tea Party. And what came out of this? Is it supposed to be social conservatism, or is the whole movement of Tea Party, the whole movement, supposed to be about freedom and liberty and removing all of the scams that are involved with the monetary system, with the political system, with the multinational corporations that have no accountability to anyone, the United Nations, all that stuff? But it's been hijacked into a social thing by some.
Well, what I think is that this the American people have gotten to a state, again, by, you know, due to the media and due to the propaganda, where they think that the federal government, where they're not only actually dependent on the federal government, but they're psychologically dependent on the federal government. We have to remember that the older generation, which is now going out of power and struggling mightily to hang on to it, by the way, comes from a World War paradigm of thinking, where the federal government basically controlled millions and millions and millions of people via the military and via the military-industrial complex, which is tightly connected to the soldiers. And you could go back to the World War II and see all this propaganda that, you know, ties the American psyche directly into the will of the federal government. And actually, it's supposed to be the opposite. The federal government is supposed to be tied into the will of the people. And extremely
restricted. The 10th Amendment said right off the bat, anything that we don't specifically write on this paper, that's a state thing. And somewhere we lost that in the past 230-something years. We lost the fact that if it's not a basic component regarding infrastructure, military, Navy, you know, some sort of basic general governance thing, it's a state issue. You're supposed to be able to vote with your feet. And somewhere along the way, this big government progressive movement, both Republicans and Democrats, decided, hey, how about we just get everyone arguing together, and we'll be the same group. I'll just play this wrestler. I'll be the good wrestler, and you be the bad wrestler. And we'll just play, and then after the game, after the match, after the performance, we'll have a martini. You know, that's essentially what Jesse Ventura said when he got elected in Minnesota. So talk to those people that are just frustrated with this government right now.
Well, I'd really like to talk to the social conservatives out there who think that because we have a free country that this somehow affects your actions. You know, you don't have to agree with me as a gay person. You know, and by the way, I'm also a Christian. And, you know, they don't have to agree with me at all about that. In fact, the peace and prosperity platform is one in which you are specifically enabled, permitted, and protected not to do those things. You know, but I think that because of the psyche of the American public as a result of 50 years of wartime statehood, wherein we're both physically and psychologically dependent on the federal government, we think that any decision that is made at the federal government level is going to somehow affect everybody. You know, that this is somehow reflective of everybody's views, of everybody's position, of everybody's place in the world. And this is just the opposite of the way things should be. Look, I don't care if a person is an absolute 100% bigot and they hate my guts for who I am. I don't mind at all. In fact, I will stand in front of you and protect you while I offer you the soapbox freely and without commitments to stand on that thing and to say how much you hate me and how much I'm wrong and how much I'm going to hell and how much God, you know, blah, 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 whatever you want to say. I will protect your right to say it, because I know that if I don't, then my rights to say those things are every bit as in jeopardy as yours would be. And that's where people have the disconnect. People have to understand that your rights are dependent on my rights. If I don't have rights, then that means that you don't have rights, regardless of where you stand on the positions. And I think that comes as a result of 50 years of wartime statehood and psychological dependency on the federal government to decide for us as a people who we are.
You know, It's interesting you should articulate that point as poignantly as you did. You know, the guest coming up on the Agree to Disagree program coming up here after we speak with Christopher David, we are going to be talking with the Kennedy author, Eternal Flame. This guy is my uncle, and he is a Southern Baptist preacher. And he's a Christian, I'm a Christian, we're definitely different blends of Christian. And I've always said, you know, I agree with my Uncle Bruce about 7 out of 10 things. You know, and occasionally you'll hear 3 out of 10 things come out of their mouth, and you're like, ooh, nope, lost me there. But let's agree to disagree and move on. You know, and I think that's the type of thing we need in this country. We need more conversations with the uncle you don't quite agree with sometimes. I think we need to reach across the aisle, not to make a horrible compromise on something that's going to damage everyone. That's not a compromise, that's a mistake. But I think we need to look at our quote-unquote political enemies and just say, look, let's go through 10 different topics, and let's see if we can agree on anything. And maybe we could just talk about that for a second.
Right. I think that it's unfortunate that, you know, speaking in terms of Christians specifically, that a lot of Christians who would consider themselves to be social conservatives fail to recognize the wolves at the gates. And the Bible says that we will be attacked and we'll be vilified and targeted, and we will be a hunted people in the end days. And I think that we are in that age as we speak, and we should realize that what that means, and kind of because of that, be able to relate to those groups of individuals who it happens to as well. You know, it was like, what's the saying go? First they came for the Polish, and I didn't say anything. Then they came for the Gypsies, and I didn't say anything. And then they came for the such and such, and I didn't say anything. And then they came for me, and there was nobody left to stand for me.
And there's there's also, that is a fantastic quote. And then there's always, do unto the least of my brothers as you would do unto me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's at that point, it's like, even if you have a point of view that is just loathing of my existence, if you would therefore consider me the lowest in your social strata and paradigm and people you would care to have conversations with, the scriptures teach you're supposed to do unto those people which you cannot stand, that which you would do unto your Creator's face should you meet it.
Jesus knelt at the feet of the prostitute and washed her feet with his own hands. And I don't think any more of a clear picture of how we are intended to behave and to conduct ourselves as Christians could be when Jesus did it.
Well, we're going to get a chance to talk about that because we have 3 topics coming up on the Agree to Disagree program. We're going to be talking with Bruce Engelman, author of Eternal Flame. We're going to talk about the Kennedy murder, and then we're also going to talk about a few other things. We're going to talk about the Civil War, because I've really been studying up on the Revolutionary War, and I've been feeling this thing in the United States right now where you got the Christian and Muslim conflict. You have the 99% versus the 1%, or the 53 versus the 47, those who pay something in tax and those who pay nothing and keep collecting. You have the social concept of, you know, the gay marriage and the abortion issue. And it just feels like we are just being pulled apart limb from limb, like Mel Gibson at the end of Braveheart, you know, drawn and quartered by 4 horses going in different directions. And there's no way we are going to make it as a nation if we argue over our disagreements, the things where we disagree. If we spend all of our effort being angry at our brother, the guy next door, the family member, the uncle where you might not quite agree on every issue, you know, we don't stand a chance as a nation. And I'm just trying to figure out, what is it going to take for people to see this before we have to make a huge mistake to learn this lesson?
It's just as easy as a simple decision. There's room for everyone if everyone makes room for me. That's it. That's all people have to do, is just make room for everybody so that you can have room for yourself. You don't have to change what you think. You don't have to change your mind about anything. You don't have to change your position. You don't have to, you don't have to do anything of that sort. You are free as an American born in this country to be exactly the person that you are. Period. The end of debate. There's no government. There's no legislation. There's no statute. There's no authority. There's no police anywhere that can make you be different than what you are. And in America, you have that right, and it's inalienable. Nobody can take it from you. But the only way that works is if that also works for me. Even when you disagree with me the most,
especially when you disagree the most, and
exactly.
I don't know if did you ever listen to Maynard James Keenan, and either in Pussifer, Perfect Circle, or Tool, his 3 bands.
I haven't. I've listened to the music, of course, but I haven't like really analyzed what he's said or anything like that.
This is a great day, then, my friend, because Hank, I really hope you get a chance to dig into some of his lyrics, because he gets into some real transcendental, metaphysical, spiritual meaning of life stuff in there. But he has a song called "Right in Two." And it's about being split right in two. And there's this line in there about, don't these talking monkeys know that Eden has enough to go around?
Right.
Silly monkeys give them thumbs. They forge a blade to cut their brother down and divide right in two. And it's this really cool song just about the human condition, where we waste our efforts and energies and talent, and parts of our soul are dying because we have to constantly be in conflict with another cell in the same organism, which is us. You know,
right.
and that's what the concept of God, at least my Christian God, as I found him, it, her, whatever definition it is. We don't, there's no point in arguing over whose definition of God is more right. I have my personal thing, but my God wants us to just get along. There are bad people, there are evil people that you have to deal with, but the rest of us, like you said, if we're not hurting people, we shouldn't be wasting our time on this stuff, because our currency's falling apart and people are 400% underwater in their mortgages, and Eden has enough to go around. And especially at Easter, maybe we should ponder that for just a second. Happy Easter, by the way.
Well, thank you, and happy Easter to you as well. He is risen. Indeed.
I mean, I wish we had more of a debate on the spiritual stuff that isn't like, Rick Santorum wants to ban porn. Come on, man. Really?
Good luck. That's really going to get him elected in this country.
That's the most in-depth spiritual conversation we can have in 2012. That's the best we can do. Come on, guys. So it's always important to me, and I know Bruce and I were going to talk about religion in the public arena of politics these days, and that's something that's interesting to him because he's also a pastor. He's a pastor and an author. So, it's interesting how this is all coming together today, Hank. I'm really happy you had the opportunity to join our program. We're running, I'd say we're running late, except when you run the show, you get to do it however you want to, and this is how I wanted to do it. So, thank you very much for joining us. If I ever wanted to come on your show, if you were perhaps so engendered and just blown away by the wit and merit of the thoughts streaming from my skull through the radio to you, through the computer to you, when are your shows?
I broadcast every single day at the 4 o'clock hour Eastern, and the program is called HX Live. If we have call-in number, we have a toll-free call-in number, we have a local call-in number. You could probably, send smoke signals, and I would get the message. So,
nice.
Yeah, that's every single day, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. on the East Coast, rawballradio.com.
Excellent. Well, hey, it's been a pleasure. I'm really happy we connected so quickly, and we're trying to connect the dots. Like you said, if somebody feels so inclined to become a part of the conversation, they reach out to you directly, and there might be a way they could get their own radio show as part of your network, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We provide basically, everything that you need. Pretty much all that you need is a microphone and a decent connection, a decent web connection, and we take care of the rest.
That's fantastic. Well, I will put it out there that if you ever want to come back on, send us a direct message on Twitter at American_media_. Where are you guys at on Twitter?
Let me see here. I'm actually kind of fresh into Twitter, so it's
fantastic.
All kind of.
I'm brand new into Facebook. I've never given a damn about Facebook, and I have 70 people following us. We have about 6,000 following us on Twitter, and about 11,000, gearing up to 11,000 views on YouTube. And it's growing every single week, and we have a lot of archived content on YouTube. So we're trying to hit every avenue.
Man, we need this so bad. This country needs a new media so bad. I mean, if I could ask for one just perfect wish, it would be a new media that is free and open and accessible to everybody, because information fixes so many problems.
Well, let me tell you, we tell everybody else as well. Hank Xavier of Ron Paul Radio, you are the newamericanmedia.com, because no one else is going to do it. You know, if we want the wolves to guard the hen house, or, you know, however you phrase it, the sheep house, whatever, come on, man. We're asking for problems if we don't all step up and participate in this. There's a line from Plato saying that we get the government we deserve. Well,
Yeah.
and indifference to public affairs is a sanction to being ruled by inferior men. Well, I'm tired of the crap, so I guess I'll stand up and do something I would much rather not even think about, but I need other people to start thinking and waking up and helping me a little bit. Help me carry one bucket of water and we can drain an ocean, you know, but I can't do it all myself, and you can't do it all yourself, and you are the change you've been looking for.
You better believe it. We do it every single day at ronpaulradio.com. Thanks, Brian, man. I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing.
Hank, it's fantastic. We'll stay in touch, buddy. That was Hank Xavier of Ron Paul Radio. Skype just asked me, how would you rate the quality of that call? That was fantastic. You want to talk about a radio voice? That was a very distinct voice. Thank you very much, Hank Xavier of Ron Paul Radio, for joining us. If you're out there in the Skype lines, you can find us at TNAM Radio. That is our handle over here. So that was fantastic. I'm going to kind of bring things all together, wrap them up in just a second when we come back. My name's Brian. You're listening to what almost started off as the Unhappy Hour sports show, but it quickly devolved into politics, as it often does. We'll be right back.
You were listening to the Unhappy Hour sports radio show on the newamericanmedia.com.
Have you ever considered adopting a pet to be part of your family? Our animal companions can be just as close to us as our human companions. If you're considering adoption, please visit your local shelter and adopt a pet today. Shelter pets make the best pets.
Agree to disagree. Yeah, it's a radio show we have on thenewamericanmedia.com every single Friday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Join the show. What do we talk about? Politics, religion, and spirituality. Basically anything you're not supposed to talk about in a bar. You're not supposed to have these conversations inside of a bar, but we have them every single Friday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific on thenewamericanmedia.com. Join the show, offer your opinion, and let's agree to disagree, but let's have a good conversation.
Follow the newamericanmedia.com on Twitter at American_media_.
Hi, Brian from the newamericanmedia.com. Last year I had this idea. I wanted to start a website of my own, not just something, a presence on Twitter, a presence on Facebook, and have a thing. I wanted a website. I wanted a home base for all of the ideas and things I'm interested in. I wanted live radio. I wanted to communicate with the globe. I was tired of being spoon-fed dogma by corporate interest and just, here, believe this, believe this. I said, no, I think there's something underneath the surface, but I didn't know how to do it. So I contacted Ted Distel of disteldesign.com. Ted walked us through the process of, okay, you want videos, you want to do quotes of the day, you want to have a spiritual section, you want to have a 1984 watch where government's intruding and private corporations are intruding into your privacy. Yeah, those are the things that I was interested in. Ted walked me through the process. We built thenewamericanmedia.com, and I encourage you to go online and take a look at our site. That's what he's capable of. Please, if you have an idea, go to disteldesign.com. That's DISTEL design.com. Hi, Brian from thenewamericanmedia.com. You know, this housing crisis that we've been in for a few years now has really taken a toll on a lot of families. I know somebody you've worked with, somebody that you're related to, maybe even yourself. You might have gone through some sort of foreclosure, short sale, deed in lieu of foreclosure, or any other nonsense going on in the financial markets tied to housing. One of the things that is not talked about enough is the fact that a lot of people have to get rid of their homes right now and go into some sort of apartment-style living. And in that situation, many people can't bring their cat or dog, their friend, their companion, a member of their family. Imagine your dog, imagine your cat, dropped off at a shelter. Oh, it's a shelter. They'll be safe. No, the shelters just don't have the resources capable to take care of these animals, and thousands of them are put to death every single week. Please, if you have the opportunity, go become a foster parent at a shelter. Go to your local shelter, adopt a dog or cat. Trust me, a family out there is going to really appreciate the effort.
It's Friday, and you know what that means. It's time for the Unhappy Hour live sports radio show on the newamericanmedia.com. Here is your host, Brian Engelman.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. Certainly appreciate it. We also want to thank Xavier of Ron Paul Radio. Great having you on the show, buddy. You know, that is the beauty of running your own station. You get to break format when you feel like it. Game plan, though, as in anything else, is to get listeners, is to get people calling the show, texting the show, sending direct messages on Twitter, sending emails, participating on the show, telling your friends. You know, turn 7 people into 70, into 700, into 7,000, into 7 million, into 7 billion. How many people are on the planet? 5.5, 6? Gotten a little confused lately. I thought it was 5.5, maybe. I keep hearing all these predictions of how many in so many years, and I blend them together. But the game plan, if you're out there listening, is to tell a friend about this. You know, is there anybody that cares about these issues that you're talking about? Do you think we're making sense? Do you think we're mildly entertaining or at least semi-knowledgeable? Do you think we're worth the time for somebody to have in the background while they do whatever it is they feel like doing? Whether it's accounting or partying. I don't care. But, you know, I think we really have to return to these libertarian concepts. I don't see a way that our nation survives it if we don't. I just don't. Speaking of survive, I just got to give this to you here. We're going to refresh it just to make sure we have the most current story. U.S. Navy jet crashes in Virginia. 2 pilots ejected, 9 taken to the hospital. This is something we would probably not normally talk about, but we're going to have to do that. 9 people taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. All but 1 has been released. Search for victims is about halfway complete. Pilots are reportedly safe and conscious. Fuel dumped before the crash likely avoided a quote-unquote massive fireball. It's from a U.S. Navy FA-18 Hornet jet. So, this is a time where we need to just take a second, you know, and ponder what people are doing right now. You know, we're on the radio. I did not decide to sign up for our armed services. Other than your role as a human being, as an American, your God-given right to protect yourself and try to become as competent at protecting yourself as possible. But, you know, I mean, you look at this picture, it's pretty wicked. I mean, it's a wicked picture. Crashing into an apartment. So, I would just like to take this Easter weekend, or this Easter weekend, and thank our troops. You know, have a few family members, a few cousins, and on my wife's side, some other people that have served in Vietnam and that are currently engaged in active duty military. So, you know, on Easter, it's a rebirth, right? It's a rebirth. It's a chance to start again. It's a chance to kind of think about the fragility of life and what a rebirth would mean with an eternal soul. It's the concept of being a good guy or girl. And trying to care about your fellow man. And there are heroes out there, whether you agree or disagree with all the policy decisions of our military, those at the top as far as politicians and military experts. It's a time where we should all take a second and think about those people that are giving so much just to give us a chance. The story of Christ was dying on a cross, dying for the world's sins so that we could live. And in a way, that's a lot like the story. You know, take the saving grace and the Redeemer and the all-knowing, the all-being, the omnipotent, the omniscient component of it, and the military die so that we can live. They give of themselves so that we can exist. So say a quick prayer, if you will, for the folks over there as that U.S. Navy jet crashes in Virginia. 9 in the hospital still looking for victims. It's wicked. You got to see these pictures. I haven't checked out the video yet, but I wanted to bring that to you. My name's Brian. We got a couple of really good guests coming up on our next show, Agree to Disagree. We're going to be speaking with Christopher David. He's a Ron Paul Republican and a Liberty candidate. A Liberty candidate in California. And then you also have author and pastor Bruce Engelman, who wrote The Eternal Flame, a book about the Kennedy murder. We're going to talk about the Civil War, and we're going to talk about the role of religion in the public discourse in 2012. Thank you very much for listening. We're going to take this quick break, and we'll be right back on the other side.
You are listening to the Agree to Disagree program on thenewamericanmedia.com.
Hi, Brian from thenewamericanmedia.com. Last year I had this idea. I wanted to start a website of my own, not just something, a presence on Twitter, a presence on Facebook, and have a thing. I wanted a website. I wanted a home base for all of the ideas and things I'm interested in. I wanted live radio. I wanted to communicate with the globe. I was tired of being spoon-fed dogma by corporate interest and just, here, believe this. I said, no, I think there's something underneath the surface, but I didn't know how to do it. So I contacted Ted Distel of disteldesign.com. Ted walked us through the process of, okay, you want videos, you want to do quotes of the day, you want to have a spiritual section, you want to have a 1984 watch where government's intruding and private corporations are intruding into your privacy. Yeah, those are the things that I was interested in. Ted walked me through the process. We built thenewamericanmedia.com, and I encourage you to go online and take a look at our site. That's what he's capable of. Please, if you have an idea, go to disteldesign.com. That's DISTEL design.com.
Have you ever considered adopting a pet to be part of your family? Our animal companions can be just as close to us as our human companions. If you're considering adoption, please visit your local shelter and adopt a pet today. Shelter pets make the best pets.
Follow thenewamericanmedia.com on Twitter at American_media_.
Hi, it's Brian from thenewamericanmedia.com. I'm a sports fan. I was raised in Cleveland, spent 25 years in Ohio. I watched the drive, the fumble, the shot too. I watched Art Modell steal the Cleveland Browns and win a Super Bowl over in Baltimore. I watched a horrible coach named Bill Belichick go on to the Patriots and win Super Bowls over there. Hooray. I am a bitter sports fan. Let's not even talk about what happened with he who shall not be named, who went to South Beach to take his talents there. Excuse me, I almost threw up in my mouth a little bit there. I'm a sports fan who cares to talk about the things that matter to me. That is the Indians, the Cavs, the Browns, and the Buckeyes. But of course, I pay attention to national sports, and we discuss that on our show as well. That's why we have The Unhappy Hour every single Friday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific. Sit down, have a drink. It's the end of a long work week, and we can all get together and talk about the unhappy times that we've had as sports fans. We've all had them. We've had ups and downs, but as Cleveland fans, we only have downs. Join us.